What's up, everybody? Welcome to Couch Dimension, video game podcast, where we're talking about video games from a legal developer and player perspective. I'm back this week, joined by my co-host Red and Captain. Red, Captain, it's good to see you guys again after my hiatus last week in the couch cushions.
Yeah.
How were the?
It kind of sounds like you got some Cheetos stuck down in there.
Yeah, so, interesting thing about the couch cushions. The Cushioниtes are actually a fine bunch of people. I quite like them. We became fast friends, and, they've got a Chili's to go down there.
Oh, no, you don't. You didn't.
I didn't what?
Did you go to a Chili's to go?
Well, of course I went to the Chili's to go.
Oh, no, see, that's your problem.
Well, but also at the same time, I did catch couch pox. So that's why my throat is not feeling great this week. So apologies in advance to our listeners and our viewers, because I'm sure I kind of sound like shit. I'm probably a little quiet too. So, but the show must go on. And so I'm here. We are talking about video games. Given we're probably not talking about video games as in-depth as we normally would, everybody here had a pretty busy week, so we're doing more of a chill episode this week. Just kind of talking about some discussion questions and things like that. But before we get going, I actually brought you guys something back from from beneath the cushions.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I got you both a plate of honey chipotle chicken crispers from the Chili's to go. Here you go.
Why are they
I'm a
cold?
little concerned.
How far away is the Chili's to go?
Okay, I'll take your concerns one at a time. Red, you first.
One, they're cold. So how far away is the Chili's to go inside of the couch?
It's pretty far. It's like at least 3 hours into the cushions. I thought I would be fucking nice and bring you some back, but I can take them if you don't want them.
No, I'll take the couch box.
Okay. Well, Red, you're on thin fucking ice, buddy. Because I went out of my way. You know how much Chili's to go is like 20% more expensive than regular Chili's. And I thought I would get you guys some honey chipotle chicken crispers. I thought you would be happy about it. But clearly, I'm the only one here with a modicum of fucking decency.
I said I was gonna eat them.
Good,
What's the problem here?
you fucking better. Anyways, let's.
You want me to eat them on mic? I can do that.
yeah, eat them on mic. I would like to hear the sounds of you eating them. Good. That's some good
Jam.
That's some good.
They are crisp.
Yeah, they're crispier than you think, man.
Well, while you guys settle down with your honey chipotle, let's get into the show. Like I said, we've kind of got some bigger kind of questions this week, as opposed to specific news stories. We'll be back to the news next week, don't worry. And any big stuff that we missed this week, we'll have for you then. But, Captain, you wrote a series of discussion questions. So I figure I'll let you intro these, and we can talk about it. We can fill an hour's worth of time.
I feel like if we invite these people week to week to hang out on the couch with us, they should know us a little bit better. A little bit better. I can't talk. So, I'd like to know, I guess first off, let's start at the beginning. What are your formative systems? Now, Tiny, I have a feeling, just slightly, that we might have some overlap, but
For no reason related to our identities.
for no reason at all. But so the N64 was the big one for me, as it is for a lot of people. But it should be said that at a very young age, I actually had access to an NES and used to play things like Super Mario Brothers 3. And I believe I had Super Mario Brothers 1. There was another, but
Crazy that you've had access to it for that long and you still fucking suck at it.
One moment. Give me one sec. How's that audio, bitch?
I'm glad you're enjoying your honey chipotle chicken crispers.
I am.
What a gracious host.
Outside of that, really, we get started with the N64 and Banjo-Kazooie and Zelda, which definitely didn't influence me to be inclined to collect a bunch of shit in games and love Zelda. What about y'all?
Yeah, for me, it's also going to be the N64 and the GameCube as sort of my formative consoles, with games like GoldenEye on the N64 being like absolutely, completely formative to my identity. When I was a kid in kindergarten, I would try to play James Bond on the playground, and there was always kids that were like, I want to be James Bond. I want to be James Bond. I said, no, there can only be one James Bond, and it's me. You're Boris, bitch. And I made them get in fucking line. And then I got banned from playing James Bond because the teachers were like, you can't be making gun motions and shit at people and pretending to shoot each other.
This is a story I have never heard.
I swear
Maybe
I've told you
Boris
this before.
I think you told me the Boris part. I don't think you told me a teacher.
Yeah, no, I was banned from James Bonding. That's how badass I am.
You got... Just tell me you weren't banned for wall hacks.
At the ripe age of 5 years old. But yeah, and then on the GameCube, games like Animal Crossing really expanded my idea of what a game can be. And to this day, that is one of the best game experiences I've ever had. But Red, what about you?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I missed the question because I was Amazon shopping to fix my house.
What do you mean your house? You're stuck in the dimension, bitch.
Yeah, I
don't know.
Amazon works here.
Oh,
Amazon works here. I still
shit.
get phone service.
I didn't know that. The question was just what are your sort of like formative game consoles and young gaming experiences?
Okay, so I had a PS1 is the first thing I remember being my console. I had it for 2 months, and then my mom decided I wasn't responsible enough to keep CDs or discs clean, and I got an N64. And the N64 formed a lot of my early gaming times, especially Donkey Kong 64 and what was it called? The Star Wars game where you played as a guy who was Han Solo adjacent.
I actually don't know if I know that one.
Yeah, it like writes you in as a character. You play as a character who suddenly existed in all of the movies, but the camera always just missed him showing up.
That's awesome. I remember the only Star Wars game I think I played on the N64 was Rogue Squadron, which was a great game. But yeah, I LucasArts used to put out some good shit, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Shadows of the Empire.
Okay.
That's the name of the game. Yeah, that definitely formed a lot of my early opinions. Now, my sibling had a NES and a SNES that I messed with, but he kept those. My older sibling is quite a few years older than me, so he kind of kept those stuff away from the hands of a child.
Oh, I can't imagine a sibling that bogarts video games. I can't imagine having a sibling that owns multiple versions of the same Pokemon game and doesn't let you play any of them.
Now, if I may take up for that sibling, they owned only one version and you owned the other, if I recall correctly.
Yes, when it came to yellow and blue, but my sibling also owned gold and silver and would not let me play either of them.
I believe you owned silver.
Well, if I did, I sure as hell didn't get a save file on my own fucking game.
I can't verify that because at this point the internal battery died on the cartridge. Fuck.
No, because what it was is I was like, hey, you've already beaten silver. Can I play silver? And I mean, not you, but my hypothetical sibling in this situation. We're unrelated. And then my sibling was like, no, I have silver so that I can catch all the Pokemon, because you can't catch all the Pokemon on one game. And I don't even think they ever finished that fucking Pokedex anyway.
Your brother and I are very close. And he doesn't recall that happening, neither do I, but...
I also like how my couch box is making me sound like a ghoul from Fallout.
Smooth skin.
Very smooth skin.
Did this hypothetical brother have 2 Game Boys? What did they?
No, that hypothetical brother would borrow my Game Boy and use the transfer cable.
Okay, now there should have been a borrow tax there.
I agree. I wasn't savvy enough at the time. That's what made me go down the road to become a lawyer, is I realized I had to protect myself.
You got fucking time machine? Because if you don't, I say we table this issue. And then we'll deal with it then.
But, in the same vein as that question. Oh, wow, I sound less like a ghoul now. In the same vein as that question, this isn't one that's actually on the agenda, but because mine kind of plays into it, what is your biggest gaming, or your earliest gaming disappointment? Something that you were so hyped for, like the first time a game ever let you down. For me, I think it might be like the Wii as a whole, specifically Animal Crossing City Folk.
First major disappointment.
Guess I don't really know how to answer that question.
That's a tough one. Because in 64, I wasn't paying enough attention, I don't think. Like, me, you, and your brother just used to rent games all the time. And with no real expectation as to what would be gotten. I have a very strange, obscure one, but it's not a good...
No, that's fine, though. I'm just asking you for, like your earliest memory of being let down by a video game.
One time, I got a skateboarding game for the PS1 that I had found at Sam's. And I was excited to play it. And when I got home, it was one of the most dog shit games I'd ever touched.
I had a sudden moment of clarity.
Before you say it, I just had to clarify so I don't get actually crucified. It was not Tony Hawk. It was not Tony Hawk. Do not think I am saying Tony Hawk was dog shit. Do not come for me. Okay, now go ahead.
Okay, so I remember seeing trailers for Digimon World 4, and I never played Digimon 1, 2, or Digimon World 1, 2, or 3. But I was like, damn, that looks really cool, and Digimon's kind of cool. It's like edgy Pokemon. So I get the game, and imagine to my horror, which maybe it's aged better now. Maybe I would enjoy it more now. But imagine my horror when it's not this sleek action game. It's just a fucking Diablo. And it takes years. It takes literal years for you to digivolve too. Like it's so hard to do. You will not do it in the first 5 hours of the game, if I remember correctly. Maybe I was just dog shit at the game at the time, but it took forever to change to look cool.
Isn't that game fairly celebrated?
Maybe. It wasn't by me at the time, though. I also wasn't good at games back then.
Okay, because I was going to say, I swear, anytime your brother checks emulation sites, which you should never do, then he has told me that he tends to see Digimon, the game Red just said is on there as like one of the top downloaded.
Often downloaded. I would just like to give a shout out to the Red January in chat, who responded that their biggest letdown was trying to make an awesome sword and scribble knots, but the more adjectives they added, the dumber it looked, which I think is hilarious. But I was never. I tried Scribble Knots, and I was never like. I was always okay. One, I can't spell for shit, so that didn't help, especially when I was a kid. I went to a very bad elementary school. But two, like I was always thinking a little bit beyond what the game would allow me to do.
I didn't know you ever played any of the like. First time I ever encountered a Scribble Knots game was when I had a computer, like that could.
I think they had one on the DS, if I remember. I remember.
Yeah,
I,
they did.
I believe that some family friends of mine.
Okay.
Some family friends of mine had it, and I borrowed it and tried it.
A family enemy.
But that you talking about that skating game that you picked up reminded me of a Razor scooter game I picked up from Sam's Club as a kid.
I believe
also
those
for
might be the same.
They're the same game. Okay, yes, absolute dog shit game.
Because I can't find this shit.
Crazy that we both independently found it, being completely unrelated.
Yeah. Yep, that's. I thought it was a skateboarding game.
No, it was a Razor scooter,
right.
and I had a Razor scooter, so I was really excited for it. And I was like, this is gonna be just like, because I lived growing up in a place that was somewhat rural, semi-rural area. There wasn't a lot of pavement, so if you had a Razor scooter, you couldn't really use it on dirt. And so I was excited to get my hands on this virtual scooter game to live out all my scootering fantasies. And it didn't live up to the hype.
Very relatable.
I always appreciate when the hype is self-created. Like, no one hyped that game. You just encountered it in the wild, and then it built up an expectation.
Well, let me because
I'm sorry. I looked at the chat.
Yes, the chat is remarking that the couch pox is making me sound like Mike from Breaking Bad. So let me try. Walter, you gotta get the skating game, Walter. No, Walter, not the Razor scooter game. Get Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Walter.
Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go down to Sam's Club. You're gonna get Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1. You're not gonna get Razor. Razor's trash. Do not get Razor. Then you're gonna bring it back here, and we're gonna do some sick tricks together, Walter.
Walter, you're gonna go buy the Razor scooter game out of the Sam's bargain bin for $7. And then you're going to go check out Tony Hawk's Pro Skater from Blockbuster and swap the discs. I don't actually
do a little cry.
I don't actually know if Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was on PlayStation. Was it? I only remember it being on. Okay.
Man, we could get lost in some memories about Pro Skater 2, 3, and 4.
Oh man, great games.
You can get lost in Pro Skater 1 and 2 today.
But what are your favorite games and systems? Because there's gotta be overlap in these questions.
Right.
But I kind of want to hit up on, like, what are just some all-time favorite series or stuff that you find defining?
For me, it's going to be Game Boy Advance. That I know that's quite a bridge in years because you have the Advance and the SP and technically the original DS. But man, all the Mega Man Zero games, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission, like some of those are still to this day some of my favorite games. Especially Mega Man Zero 3. Zero 3 holds a very, very dear spot in my heart.
That's cool because I never really got into the Mega Mans. I tried going back because there's always in your youth there's always stuff you miss that's really good. And so I think I went back and tried to play Mega Man 2 on my 3DS. And it was fun, but I never really got into it the way that I did like in college I got really, really into Super Mario Brothers 3 on my 3DS. And then I would beat the game, and again, to talk about my asshole brother who's not on this podcast at all, so I can talk as much shit as I want.
Thank God.
I beat it, and which was a big accomplishment for me. I don't know if you've ever beaten Super Mario Brothers 3. That shit's hard, especially when you get into those latter levels. And I I texted my brother. I was like, I beat it. And he was like, oh, but you used a P-wing or a cloud, so it doesn't count. So then I beat it without the P-wings and without the clouds, and then I told him, and then he was like, oh, I was just being a dick before. I didn't mean that.
Yeah, I believe I was. He was doing a bit, a fun prank, not to be taken seriously.
Well, it would have been really good had he flagged that bit and prank when he initially did it, rather than 20 hours of gameplay later.
I'm pretty sure he thought it was self-evident. However, aren't you glad you accomplished it?
I am, because I think I've beaten that game 3 or 4 times now. And it's a great game. It gives you a great sense of accomplishment. That led me down to the Donkey Kong and all of that stuff. But to get to your actual question of things that we played growing up, I really do think that as much of a FPS guy as I am now, Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing was the game that blew my mind on the GameCube. And I've played every entry in the series, and I've progressively liked them less and less. Probably because I am no longer a child. But that blew my mind because it was the first, really, if you want to put it in this context, it was the first open world game that I ever played. And I know that's weird to say about Animal Crossing, but it was still, it really expanded my boundary of what a game can be, because it was the first time that, like, in the first Animal Crossing, for example, with no prompting whatsoever, you can run into Tortimer one day, and he'll say, hey, let's build a new bridge in your town. And this is, mind you, before, like, New Leaf, where building bridges became a common thing that you could do. And it was just this crazy thing. One time he was like, hey, I'm going to be out of town for the weekend. Can you watch the lighthouse for me? And so these emergent things that the game doesn't tell you is going to happen, and that I couldn't even find in the player manual, were so cool to me. And so that sense of wonder is something that I've chased ever since.
Sorry, I was clarifying that Outside is a pay-to-win game to our chat.
Oh.
And therefore, I don't engage with it. Man, I hate to go for the most generic one, but, like, y'all, you might know. Like, for me, that open world feel, which honestly, since it's one of the first, it feels like it should be less astounding, but honestly, original Zelda, sorry, let me clarify again. Ocarina of Time, like, it felt like I was on a journey, and it had a world with, like, all these little secrets and stuff. And, like, that definitely impacted my taste in a major way. Like, don't get me wrong, Majora's Mask is probably the better game, but Ocarina of Time holds a very, very, very special place in my heart. In terms of, like, more modern games, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 are very special to me. You think with how much I play Destiny 2, I put it on the list, but don't get me wrong, it's really good. It's really good, but it still feels like it doesn't. You ever have a game like that where you put a bunch of time into it? It's one of your main games, and yet it still doesn't, like, you wouldn't put it in your top games of all time or your favorite games.
Yeah.
And that's always a weird one. Like, I love Skyrim, but honestly, Oblivion probably had the bigger impact on me.
I absolutely agree with that statement.
Halo 2, fucking, like, I'm hitting things that a lot of people hit. Like, these were massively impactful games. I will name, so for the sake of having a more interesting one, before I go, like, Half-Life 2 episodes 1 and 2, and go for more, like, things everyone has played. how about I throw a curveball and say that I think I'll use it to transition to another question. We're going to jump around a bit, and it's a game I want everyone to try. I think that Outer Wilds is one of the most unique games I've played in years, and it was so rewarding. It's such a like that game grabbed me and did not let go till I was done. And it is one that look, it's not gonna be the same for everyone. It's a puzzle game dressed up as an adventure game. It does have it is an adventure, but there are more puzzles than you think than when you first look at it. But it is so unique and so cool. And I can't guarantee everybody would love it, but I think everyone should try it to at least see if it grabs them, because it's a gem. So I guess, yeah, for y'all, what are some of your favorite games, or not favorite, not just favorite, but like everyone should at least give this a try. They might not, you can understand if they don't like it, but you think they should give it a try because if they like it, it's really going to hit for them.
Yeah, you've been recommending that game a lot, and I've been meaning to try it, and I just haven't.
As far as recommend, I don't know, because I play some pretty niche shit sometimes.
Well, that's why it's not necessarily like, oh, you should tell this person they have to play the game and go all the way through. It's, I want you to try the game.
Well,
that's why nicheness doesn't matter so much, because it's, if they try and bounce off of it, it's fine. But
for me, that might very well be Hunt Showdown, which I heard you talking shit about last episode.
I was not
you waited till I was gone to talk shit about my favorite game.
I was not talking shit.
Let me rebuff some of your points, which, by the way, I'm taking your fucking Honey Chipotle Chicken Crispers back because you don't deserve them for talking shit about Hunt Showdown.
No!
Fuck you.
My Crispers!
No!
I didn't realize those didn't actually move in real time. But yes, now they're mine again. And anyways, what I love about the game is that it provides its players with, which this is something you talked about. There's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of whatever. Hunt Showdown, more so than any other shooter, is trying to create a singular experience in the player. And that is an FPS that inspires a sense of paranoia and where a true jump scare can happen to you at any time, and frequently does. And so the slow pacing of it at times contributes to me to that feeling of you don't quite know when you're going to be shot at out of the blue, and sometimes that can be frustrating, but other times it encourages you to always be on your guard and never trust anything. Which is what makes sound cues so important in that game, because you need to be able to hear to know when you're being snuck up on. And it does something to me that no other game has successfully done, and that is that it allows for a true PvP stealth experience. There aren't a lot of PvP games out there that actively utilize stealth mechanics well, and that's mostly because players are smarter than a Metal Gear AI that says, "What was that noise?" Right? And, breaks off of his patrol pattern. So to me, the fact that it is doing this shooter stealth experience is just really cool, and I think that everyone should try it. And if you bounce off of it, I mean, that makes sense because it's a little obtuse. But the bones of it and the promise of that game for what video games have the potential to be, to me, is like no other.
Now, quick thing, when was I talking shit? What did I say that was talking shit?
You were comparing it to Valorant, and you're like, I like Valorant more because there's not as much downtime. And
no, I said some parts click with me a little bit more.
No, you were talking mad shit, and now I got your crispers, bitch.
Yeah.
Shit.
There's man. The thing is, the game that I would recommend is definite that I would love for more people to play. Will bounce off of 55% of people who try it, and that would be the original Dragon's Dogma, because it's still a unique experience compared to Dragon's Dogma 2. And it's definitely obtuse because Dragon's Dogma is not a game about completing your quest log book. It's a game about exploring the map. Quests just happen to be directive or incentive for doing so.
Let me ask
A
you
lot of
this.
times, go ahead.
Would you recommend that people try the original Dragon's Dogma before they play 2, or to play 2 and then go back later to the first one?
The two games are from different points in Capcom. That's like asking me, should I play Monster Hunter 4 first before Monster Hunter World or Rise? They're from two different points in Capcom's history. And I would definitely recommend probably the newer one first for ease of adjustment.
Right.
But the old ones are still a very unique.
I mean, that makes sense to me, right? Like, get hooked with the more accessible product and then go to the more impenetrable one.
Yeah. That being said, I have completed Dragon's Dogma 2, and I think I like the story of the original one more, but the gameplay and some of the new features in the newest one are really cool.
Okay. We actually have a question here from chat that I would really like to broach. Ashy Crowned Sparrow Larks asks, question for the panel. Favorite, for personal reasons, underrated game soundtrack?
There was a point in time where I would have said Risk of Rain 2, but it's basically math rock, and it is no longer underrated.
Underrated is a good component. I don't know that it just came out or very recently, but I'm really, really enjoying. I think the Pacific Drive soundtrack is really strong, but I can't really say that. Like, it has both like instrumental music, and then it has a like a track list as well for the radio when you play it in your car. I think that is like, it's been a lot of things have been stuck in my head. I think that it hits the right notes of you being on a kind of road trip. I will also say, while I do see it praised as one of the best soundtrack, or I see it praised in the community for having a great soundtrack, shout out to Destiny 2 for genuinely never missing with its soundtracks. I love every soundtrack it's had and listen to them pretty frequently.
I actually have a couple of answers for this. I've got one that I'm going to spend more time on than the other. And the first is the soundtrack to Oblivion. Now, which is the Elder Scrolls 4, right?
Yep, 4.
Now, underrated is kind of questionable here because I know a lot of people like the soundtrack. But I do think that a lot of people like the Skyrim soundtrack more just because people generally like Skyrim more than they like Oblivion. So I feel Oblivion in itself is an underrated game. But the music in that game was absolutely life-changing for me. I mean, I've got a 12-hour playlist of video game music that I often resort to when I'm working or, whenever I'm looking for something without lyrics, right, so I can concentrate on what I'm doing. And every time one of those songs comes on, I am transported back in time to that location in the game. Wings of... forgive me if I'm not pronouncing this right, but it's an imaginary word. Kinnereth? Wings of Kinnereth is every time I hear that song, I am in Anvil on the Gold Coast. And, like, it is, so just for that reason alone, it really makes me say that that is one of the best video game soundtracks. Then my other answer, and because I've answered this as the answer to too many things already, that's why I have two, and that is the original Animal Crossing soundtrack, because it is weirder than any of the others, and it's got some really crazy stuff going on with the way that they're using these. It's almost stuck halfway between like 8-bit and modern soundtrack in these weird synths and things that they're using that make it absolutely delightful, and 100% I would recommend that as well.
There is one thing I would recommend if you've played like any old 8-bitty, 16-bitty JRPG type games like Golden Sun or some older Final Fantasies. If you listen to the Sea of Stars soundtrack, it is such a perfect soundtrack for just blasting you back in time to where you're just in awe of a fantasy world that is two-dimensional. And also the game is fantastic, but the soundtrack is really something else.
Well, Captain, would you like to move us into the next
Yes,
discussion?
sorry, I was going to. You ever had that problem if you feel like you're jet? Of course you have. Everyone has it. I felt like I was about to sneeze. I was muting my mic for it.
I, with the couch pox, have no idea what that feels like. I haven't been
No.
holding in a coughing fit for the last half hour.
But I did want to say Ashley's question. I did. Disco Elysium is very strong. Sorry, I just saw Ashley talking about that. I haven't listened through all of Disco, but from what I've heard, or from what I have played, yeah, it's very good. Also, just want to say, two quick omissions we had was, but not underrated. Ocarina of Time, easy sends me back in time every time I hear
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And I'm surprised you didn't mention Animal Crossing, Tiny.
I literally did.
Oh, you did. My brain just skipped over. Oh, I know why. I was looking at work thing. I'm sorry. I have work stuff this week that is a lot.
I understand. If I had not already taken your chicken crispers away, I would take them away a second time. Just because of that, I'm taking Red's chicken crispers away too.
Good news, Red. If they're poisoned, he's going to double poison himself.
Well, that's the good thing about couch pox is the more of it you throw into your body, the more immunity you build up. It's like COVID. We're going to get flagged for the COVID disinformation on Spotify because of that.
So I guess I would like to know, is there anything you would like to see? That might be too broad. Just like dream game ideas, but it's I partially have it in mind because I saw a thing today that might fulfill a dream game idea.
Yeah, I know. Because you sent it to me and it looks fucking awesome. I hope it's good.
For the record, I will say it's a game called Jump Ship. IGN has a first look at it, and it's a Left 4 Dead FTL Sea of Thieves style thing, which is exactly what I want. That's sci-fi. I've wanted something like that for a while. The only thing that's kind of missing is I would like PvP, but I can live without it. That's not the biggest deal. So I realize it's kind of a vague question, but if you have anything that comes to mind, feel free to pitch it.
Yeah, I've
got a bigger question.
For a long time, that has been my dream game in a lot of ways. When Sea of Thieves came out, I said I want Sea of Thieves, but in space, and Jump Ship looks like it might really accomplish that well. We still don't have a release date for it, so we'll see. But I mean, you know, PvP not being there kind of disappoints me, but at the same time, I had a whole Sea of Thieves crew that played regularly that fell apart just because the PvP got too intense. It got too sweaty, and then people didn't want to play because you spend 5 hours looting treasure, and then it's all ripped away from you at the last minute, and it kind of turns you off to the game. So I think that it being purely PvE is completely fine with me. I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, I mean, basically my dream game has been for years. Make Cowboy Bebop a game. Make it an MMO.
Yeah.
I want to be able to hunt down bounties. I want to be able to hunt down bounties on other players. You know, that requires obviously a lot of technical ability and like a console generation we don't live in yet. But as far as pipe dreams go, that's mine.
Well, Red.
I'm engaging with chat.
Okay. Well,
Well, let's
then,
engage with chat here in
um,
the main thing because chat actually submitted an answer to this. Ashy Crowned Sparrowlark says that their dream game is Cyberpunk Stardew Valley, which I think is honestly really, really cool idea.
you know, Ashley, there is a thing there's a game I've been keeping an eye on for a while, but it's still in development that might fulfill that for you. Well, we'll talk about it later. It's a voxel-based thing. So I would like to know from y'all. Let's see. We run up on time, or I need to pick carefully.
Yeah, we got about 15 minutes.
So voxels is not like incels. I want to know. I'm juggling between. Do I want to ask about eras of games? Do I want? You know what? Yeah, let's go ahead. We'll do that one. That's probably the best one. What do you think are your favorite and the best eras of video games? And there is a difference I see between the two, which is what is personally like what personally excels for you, and what do you think if you look at it from a more objective lens? This is like is a good time for video games, you know?
Yeah, I think
Um,
if you don't mind me taking the lead on this one,
no, go ahead.
I think that my favorite era of video games, well, and it might not even be my favorite, but it's one I haven't talked about yet. So I want to do that because I don't want to just retread ground I've already done. And that is the Xbox 360 era. Not because it was not the best. There were a lot of problems. But it was during this time period where people were really asking big questions about what a multiplayer game can and should be. We got things like Battlefield Bad Company 2 that completely revolutionized the shooter genre. And shooters were still doing new, interesting things, right? Like there were these ideas being thrown around, things like, for example, Starhawk, or not Starhawk. What is the Warhawk? Warhawk. Starhawk was the sequel that was not as good, but Warhawk completely blowing my mind with the vast maps that it had, the massive amount of players. It felt like people were moving the ball forward on multiplayer shooters in a way that ball is not really being touched now. But as for what do I think the best era of gaming is, I think we're living in it. I think that right now is the best time to be a gamer, simply because whatever your taste is, there is either AAA content or indie content out there for you, whenever you want it.
I'm surprised you went 360 here. I thought for sure you'd go GameCube. For me, it's really tough. So I've been pretty vocal in conversations outside the podcast that I agree. I think today is the best time. for games. Like, I've been pretty adamant that I think the indie scene and the accessibility to tools to make games makes this a really rich time for them. But in terms of like favorite eras, I have a lot of good memories. I was Give me a sec. I'm getting to it. Sorry. A man in our chat is yelling at me about the GameCube, which if we were to take a if we want to take a shortcut there, I'm leaning a little into GameCube because I have a lot of really fond memories of me, Tiny, and TinyBigDude's dad playing 007 Nightfire.
Why were you hanging out with me and my dad?
I mean, that's the question you should be able to answer. I don't know. It was weird. And playing a lot of Mario Kart and Nightfire, and rentals are still a thing, so you can always just pick things up on a whim. Sometimes you get lucky and you find a new game or style game you never played before. Sometimes you go by a discount store and you get as an Operation Desert Storm for the GameCube, and it's your first experience with like a not Rainbow Six, Ghost Recon style game. In terms of damage, like taking a few hits and dying, but like it's overall kind of a shitty game. But you still have fun with it. And don't get me wrong, I have a blast with a lot of games today, but if anything, I just have fond memories of that generation that, like, I think we're in a... I am very happy. Okay, there are plenty of problems, but I'm very happy with the way things are, with the way the indie scene is progressing. Let me clarify that, because AAA, it varies, but there's some bad habits and practices. But I'm still excited for what the future holds, and I very much hope that 10 years time I look back and this is another really strong era for me. What about you, Red?
I think my answer technically is also in the GameCube era, but not explicitly the GameCube, because it's again probably still just going to be the Game Boy Advance. But that's just because Nintendo did it very good back then with backwards compatibility. Having a Game Boy Advance with the entire catalog of games that I had for my Game Boy Color still available to me was a... Did anybody else have a fucking briefcase? I had a briefcase of video games, of cartridges that I toted around everywhere I went because I got lugged around on activities by my parents.
Oh yeah,
hell yeah!
Didn't want to do.
Okay.
I had a genuine metal briefcase with I think my mom got it for me, and it was made to hold one Game Boy Advance, some batteries, and like 50 games. And playing just...
Go ahead. Sorry, I'll ask the question.
That backwards compatibility was something I really loved, and playing those games, having that little briefcase when I would get lugged around to all these like meetings my mom would have to go to, and like when I would get lugged around to go fishing with my dad, and where I did not fish, I just played Metroid Fusion or beat Golden Sun 2 for the first time on a boat in the middle of a river. It was just a very, like, the games were with me wherever I went, and I really liked that. But today is obviously the best time for games. Duh.
Now, I believe I've heard before, I could be misremembering, that you went to school with a kid that carried him around a briefcase with a single issue of Naruto in it. Is that correct?
That is entirely possible.
Any relation?
No.
Don't get your briefcases swapped.
No. I was discreet with my gaming paraphernalia in high school.
Sorry, I've become aware that the kid who carried around, sorry, it was a volume of Naruto, now legally carries a gun. So that's cool. I think he traded down. Uh,
I mean, you
but
say that till you find out how crusty that volume of Naruto was.
no, that's Naruto. You can kill someone with it if you introduce
Ah,
them to it and get them to read it. You've killed their social life. Like you can do a lot of damage with the volume of Naruto.
Databayo, Smith and Wesson is my way.
Well, Captain, I think
I
we've
didn't
got
understand what
time
this
for.
man said. It sounded like some weeb shit.
I think actually, so I
Um,
learned this from a friend the other day. Did you guys know that apparently when Naruto says "believe it" in Naruto, that's actually like something of a mistranslation?
Okay.
Apparently, apparently, it's supposed to be like a verbal quirk. Like it literally translates to "believe it," but that doesn't really capture the impact of the phrase. The phrase is really more of like if I said "you feel me" after everything I said, right? It's like a verbal like a just a tick. And so it's not supposed to be that this character is constantly telling you to believe it. It's just that like he has a speech impediment. And
I
that just didn't carry over to the US in like when they did the dub for it.
I've been on guard for this entire explanation because I felt like I didn't know how, but it was going to lead to like, oh, what does it actually mean? And you telling me like bofa or some shit like that. I didn't know where it was going, but I was afraid the whole time.
No, just every time I make a believe it joke now I think about that. But anyways, like I said, I think we've got time for one more discussion question, Cap.
Yeah, one more discussion. Then I want to talk about what we're playing a bit. So
Oh well, if we want to talk about what we're playing, we should probably do that now. We have like 8 minutes left.
you know what? We'll do a discussion because I'm looking at what we've been playing, and I think they're all repeats.
Yep.
Unless anyone has anything unique they want to say about it, like I can
No,
talk about what I've been playing, but by next week I'll probably have it done. I'd have better thoughts.
Yeah,
I
let's.
can't really give my opinion on what I've been playing since neither of you have
Um,
played it.
Ashley asked in chat, has anyone really been far, even as decide to use, even go want to do look more like?
Now that
Um,
is the classic. That is the 2009, 2010 internet humor I'm looking for.
well, I would prefer to ask why call it an oven when you in the hot food of out hot eat the food.
You
Okay.
of in the hot food?
Okay, let's actually get to a real question, um, which is, what is a thing you want? What is on your list of things like you fully intend to get to, you really want to get to, you've been meaning to, but it's still evading you?
For me, Chat mentioned it earlier. Disco Elysium and Dragon's Dogma are both on my. I really want to play these games, and I just haven't gotten to yet.
Ashley says to play them at the same time. I I man, I guess right now Dragon's Dogma 1.
My brother in Christ, it's your question.
That doesn't mean I ever prepped it or prepped for it. No, I was thinking about what would be fun to ask you. So I Dragon's Dogma 1 and 2, like I've got both. I've just been, well, rather Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen and Dragon's Dogma 2. And I the Yakuza series is calling to me. I've just been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. But I really need to actually sit down and get further than like the first like 3 chapters of that game of Yakuza 0. Um, but Disco Elysium as well. I didn't get deep enough into that. I think the big problem is always like, which I'm sure you have experienced as well, or y'all both have, which is like, yeah, I need to get around to this single player thing. But here are all these multiplayer things and people who want me to play multiplayer things with them.
Yeah.
And I want to play with them. And yeah.
Yeah, my friends are actively pinging me to play Helldivers, and it's like, well, this other shit's just going to have to wait.
Yeah. What about you, Red? What you got?
I don't know if I actually have a great answer for this question because, I've thought about playing the Yakuza games, but I've been living very vicariously with the.
You said Outer Wilds earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, Outer Wilds. That's my answer.
Sure, Captain. We'll definitely get around to playing it. Definitely.
But aside from games that someone one of you brings to my attention, there's not a game that's just been sitting there burning a hole in my pocket.
I do want to bring up a thing real quick before we break. It's not or before we end. It's not a news story exactly, but it is a pressing matter for anyone who's interested. There's a game. It is free right now. I advise you check it out. It has a very unique premise. Michael Q. Bowie in chat has brought it up, and it's called Content Warning. And I advise checking it out on Steam because it is free.
It's not free anymore.
It's not free.
It's now $8. I looked earlier today.
Damn.
I will definitely be picking it up for $8 though.
Well, I will say, since I'm already talking about it, just premise of the game is going into spooky areas with your friends to film content and doing dumb shit. So it is a horror game, but it is also you're intended to fuck around, which is strong.
And we might even
we can stream it.
Yeah, I was gonna say we might even stream that to the channel if we play this weekend. So be on the lookout for that.
Shame it's not free anymore, but
it's $8.
It's $8, and it looks extremely promising as a concept. Because I figured since we're talking about novel concepts and stuff in games, maybe it's worth bringing up. Seems like a fun one.
Yeah. Well, with that, I want to first thank you, Captain, for putting together some discussion questions for this week on account of us all being extremely busy and couch pox ridden. It was fun to just be able to sit and shoot the shit with you guys. So that was a good time.
Yep. We'll probably get back to covering bigger topics next week, but it felt like a good time to just kind of chill out. And basically have a nice little episode where people can get to know us and our taste a little bit better, where we're coming from. Which I will say in the future, if we do another one of these, I'll try to do some bigger questions. I'm sure Red would probably like to talk about things like Monster Hunter, Dragon's Dogma, Armored Core, where I didn't even touch Minecraft and the automation game whole and things like that, or my love of Bloodborne. What the fuck? I didn't even talk about Bloodborne.
Well, we're all probably better for that.
No, we're not.
But yeah. I want to thank chat.
Amend what I said earlier and add Bloodborne in there somewhere. You'll find a place.
I want to thank chat. Y'all have been popping off extra today. Made it today a lot of fun. So thank you guys for watching. And then finally, I just want to talk about where you can find us. You can find us here, obviously, every Tuesday at 5:15 p.m. CST. You can find us on YouTube for our playbacks at TinyBigDude, sorry. And then additionally, for those who weren't able to catch last week's episode live and have been waiting on that upload for both the YouTube and podcast, that's another thing. You can find us on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple. Sorry for leaving that out. But for those who have been waiting on that upload, I'm sorry. I've had the couch pox. I was stuck in the cushions last week. That upload will be happening tonight along with the upload for this. So, don't fret. It's coming. You'll be able to catch it then. And with that, I think we are done with our show for today. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Later, everyone. Have a good week.
We're trapped in the couch by a wizard.
We are trapped in the couch by a wizard. I like that that's becoming your new sign-off. I like it.
Yes.